So welcome back to the Living in North Carolina channel. Today we're going to take you along for a screen share map immersive experience where we're going to walk you around Hickory. And if you've been wondering what we mean by Northwest Hickory, Southwest Hickory, and all that good stuff, stick with us because we're going to share it right now. All right, so you guys asked for it, so let's jump right into the map. So I'm sharing my screen with you, and I'm going to take you on a tour of Hickory. We are in Hickory, North Carolina. That's going to be our central point. Let me collapse this down for you because I want you to be able to see everything that I see on the map, because we get asked for this a lot, and I feel like this would be helpful in kind of explaining the area. And what I'm going to go over with you with this map is, just as a resident here and having grown up here, how mentally I break down what Hickory is into the different quadrants and how I identify that. And so rather than getting bogged down in data and metrics and average house price and all that good stuff, I just want to give you a feel of what it's like to live here and what these different areas bring. So you guys hear us talk a lot on the channel about Northwest Hickory, Southwest Hickory, and we get it. Hickory's broken down into quadrants, but by what? So let me show you on a map how we identify sort of that cross point. So if you follow 127, which is also called North Center Street, you can see that on the map here. If you follow it down, it goes from all the way up here into Bethlehem, all the way down to Mountain View. So if you zoom out on the map and you see this cross point between 127, which comes all the way up here into Bethlehem, crosses over Lake Hickory, goes through Viewmont, goes through Brookford, all the way into our beloved little Mountain View. That is the line by which locals discern east from west. So when we say northwest, we're talking about west of 127, but north of what? Well, it's the railroad tracks. That's really unofficially what we define that as. And I'll show you where that's at because it's not really easily visible on the map, but see the old Hickory station? It's the old train station, and it's a really great restaurant. We eat there a lot. But you can see right there is the train tracks. So whenever we define the quadrants, that's what we're referring to. So most locals know it that way. So let's break it down into the 4 different sections and what each of those areas offer and what life would be like in those areas. So we'll start with Northwest. So as we talked about before, Northwest means west of 127 and north of the train tracks. So really, we're looking at this section up here on the map. This includes downtown Hickory, which we would maybe categorize as about right here, which is also called Viewmont. Viewmont all the way up towards the lake. North Lakes is getting a little bit super northwest of that. Most people consider Hickory to the edge of the water on this side, because if you zoom out, this is the border of Catawba County. So once you cross over into this water, you're in Alexander County. So northwest is Viewmont, it's the downtown Hickory area. And we'll zoom in here so you can kind of see what all it offers. This is where our streets get very highly numbered, okay? So this is where you get these high numbers up here. You know, some of these properties in Morse Ferry are like 29th, 39th Street. And then here at the railroad tracks, it's first. So it's a grid coordinate system. You can see like it's numbered and gridded that way. Some of the highlights of Northwest Hickory, it appeals a lot to young professionals because it's got a lot of nice high-end rental properties and apartment complexes. Viewmont has a lot of the nicer restaurants and things to do. You can see here the old Hickory station. Right here is the square, if you will, like the downtown Hickory Square. That's where our office is located. That is the most walkable and scenic, like where Oktoberfest happens and where all the big events happen and the Christmas parade happens. So if you're wanting to live in an area where you can walk your dog and go have a glass of wine and listen to live music on a Sunday afternoon, downtown Hickory may work well for you. And that is Northwest Hickory. So yeah, up here we've got Viewmont with Cafe Rule and a lot of different places to eat. And this is driving up 127. And you can tell we've got some good parks up here. Some of the private schools are located up here. And then you get to this bridge where you cross over into what's not Hickory anymore. Now you're getting into Taylorsville and Bethlehem. So we're going to finish Northwest Hickory on that top side by saying once you cross over that bridge, it's not really Northwest Hickory anymore. But I will give you a little side note, and I've talked about this in videos before. Guys, up here, you're not in Hickory city limits. You're not paying City of Hickory taxes, which, as you can see here, is a little higher than some of the others. It's 0.455 for tax rate. I told you I wasn't going to get into numbers, and I'm not going to get bogged down on that. But just know we'll provide a link in the comments below or the description below where you can see what the tax rates are. Because as I'm showing you around, you just have to be aware of the cost of living. Price points are a little higher in Northwest Hickory. So when you cross over the bridge here, things get a little cheaper, property taxes go down. And based off the fact that they're about to expand this bridge tells me they're expecting a lot of growth out there. A Starbucks just showed up out there. So you can see development precedes progress because it's anticipating that growth in the economy. So, follow where zoning changes, follow where there's opportunity like that in terms of investment dollars. If you're thinking of investing, if you're looking for a place to live, looking for a residence, a place to retire, Northwest Hickory appeals to a lot of folks because you kind of get the best of both worlds. You would think that we're separating Northwest by this big monstrosity, which is 321 and I-40. And yes, those are major roads. But if you kind of follow with what we define as Northwest Hickory, you're kind of more up in this section here. Now, keep in mind, there's different parts of Hickory, and we're going to go over all of those today. But if you zoom in, there's also Longview. Don't get Viewmont and Longview confused. Longview is a whole different thing. I'll be honest, it's not a place that a lot of people reach out and say, oh, I want to live in Longview. Just look up the stats and kind of what's out there and what you get in Longview. As a rule of thumb, I feel like every community has areas that it's like a cycle of investment dollars and growth and things being updated. And I'll show you in a second. Southeast Hickory, in our last decade, like maybe a decade or two ago, that was where all the money was. That's where the Target showed up. That's where we finally got an AMC theater. Like, there's all these things that happen in Southeast Hickory that now has become somewhat dated because all the development was from like the year 2000. Still great, still wonderful, but now investment dollars are moving northwest. But if you keep in mind that if you go too far west, you end up in Longview, which is not bad, but it's also like that's just kind of where the Hickory Airport is. Things get a little more industrial out there. You get into Hildebrand. Basically, Highway 70, as you can see right here on my map, Highway 70 is a pretty main road for us. When you get to the part of Highway 70 that intersects with 321, when you get from about right here west, well, it says east. I know I'm kind of backwards here. But if you get this way and keep going, property values decline a little bit. Things get a little less desirable as far as like where you necessarily want to live or plant a business. It's just not where the investment dollars have gone. Northwest Hickory, very desirable, lots to do, near water, higher price points, higher tax rates, but the most appealing as far as people relocating here from a larger city because they don't feel like they're forfeiting having those amenities and places to eat and things to do.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Living in North Carolina channel, your ultimate guide to everything North Carolina. Whether you're curious about daily life here or looking for the best places to explore, we've got it all covered. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Be sure to hit the like button to help others find our channel. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so that you never miss a video. We're Adriano and Katie, and we're local real estate agents with a dedicated team ready to help you make your move to North Carolina. Whether you prefer to chat via text, phone call, or email, we're here to guide you every step of the way. You can even schedule an appointment using the calendar link below. So no matter how you choose to reach out, know that our team has your back when it comes to making the move to North Carolina.
All right, guys, so moving right along, if we're talking about southwest side of Hickory, we're looking at Mountain View, and you've heard us talk about that before. So again, if we're staying true to our following 127 all the way down, you actually cross through a little town called Brookford, which is barely even a town. The population is 400 people in Brookford, and I'm going to click on Brookford so you guys can see what Brookford entails. 442 people on the population census for Brookford. It's one street, guys. And if you want to know a funny story, there used to be a cop that would sit right on this street, and we called him Brookford Bruce. I don't know if he's still out there, but he would always get you. It was one street. This is the path to get to Mountain View. So drive carefully through Brookford or Bruce will get you. However, this is your path into Southwest Hickory. Southwest Hickory is very residential. It's close to everything. That's why people like this spot, because look how close you are to 321 and 40. If you want to live in Hickory and you want to feel like you're able to hop on 40 and get anywhere else very quickly, or you want to hop on 321 and go north and south and get somewhere else, you can do that very easily from Mountain View because that big intersection runs right through there. Somebody's asked me before, well, is it very loud? No, it's not. It's kind of hard to describe. There's little neighborhoods tucked in here, but it's not like there's little neighborhoods right on this main road. It's just not like that. Some of the highlights of Mountain View and who this would appeal to. Families love Mountain View. Families like to send their kids to Mountain View Elementary School. It's a very desirable school. Much more of a small town vibe. There's little hardware stores and gas stations and smaller grocery stores. There's actually electric vehicle charging in Mountain View, which is so funny to me that of all places, that's where that's at. But it's right off, I guess, because it's right off the interstate. It has a charm to it and a little bit of a slower pace of life, a little more rural. Not all of this is in city limits, so you can also, have less restrictions out there. You'll see people with big fields and these big, beautiful homes. You also see a lot of neighborhoods because, again, this area really appeals to families. So a lot of folks want to live out here for that reason. Henry Fork River goes through here. You can go tubing on there. The further west you go, the more rural it gets. So if you go south and west far enough, you end up in Vail, and that's out there. And that is, you can see the river goes right through there, Jacobs Fork River, which is what one of the middle schools is named after. But you can see, you eventually go so far down, things spread out a lot. Baker's Mountain Park, there's a great place to go hiking. This is all still Mountain View. And if I put on a map layer that shows you the terrain, you can see there's a little, it's kind of a hill, but here's our mountain, Baker's Mountain. Beautiful community on Baker's Mountain. But if you want to look at the topography and the terrain of it, this explains why it's called Mountain View. It's a teeny tiny mountain in there. So Mountain View, very desirable. I grew up in this area. I very much recommend it. It is close to everything. And I think Adriano one time mentioned that there is one bar in Mountain View. It's called the Silver Bullet. And yes, they do have midget wrestling. That got brought up in a previous video. So please don't leave hate comments, but it is the truth. And we've never been to it. So don't criticize. We've never participated in this event, but we see signs for it. And it's a Mountain View. So if you want that slower pace, you want to be in that Mountain View area. Another thing I'll point out, because we're still in Southwest here, and I don't want to skip over this. This is also the Blackburn area. Blackburn is one of the schools, Blackburn Elementary. It is a good school as well. There's no bad schools out here. Like really, they're all great. Blackburn area has a lot of homes that are on larger lots spread out. Yeah. So just, don't forget Blackburn. It's considered part of this area and it's all part of the Southwest. And like I said, if you get far enough south and west, you're in Vail, you're in Cooksville area, Old Shelby Road, like you're getting out there. So I'm going to zoom back out and get our bearings. Let's switch over to Southeast Hickory because we're just going to kind of go backwards around a clock dial. Southeast Hickory, like I mentioned earlier, is where when I was growing up, and so I was like a teenager, this is like 20 years ago, this is where we were super excited because we were finally getting a Target and we were finally getting an AMC theater, which was called Carmike at the time. Valley Hills Mall. It's our mall. I get it. It's not the biggest. It's what we have. If you want to go to a super big mall, go to Charlotte. But Valley Hills Mall, that's our big mall in Hickory. Target, Sam's Club, a lot of the hotels, Hickory Motor Speedway. This is all the southeast part of Hickory. And a big road, if I can find it here, is Catawba Valley Boulevard. Yes, it's right here. This is where the community college is located. This is where all of the development and the growth that happened 20 years ago, it was here. Like this is where that era was. So there was all these shopping centers that popped up. The mall got revamped. And of course, housing pops up around that. So a lot of the housing you have around these neighborhoods, around these communities, Providence Forest and Walnut Creek. And you can see here, Startown Road. We've talked about Startown. This is Startown. This is that area. It's south of the railroad tracks, east of 127, that it's still Hickory. And some of this is in city limits, some of it's not. But this is where you find a lot of residential, a little bit of shopping, and some of this crosses over into like Newton even. So Newton, Startown, Conover, that's southeast side of Hickory. I know those are their own cities. I'm not confused about that, and I'm sure in the comments people will point that out. But part of this is still Hickory. Startown, the intersection of Highway 10 and Startown Road, there's a Food Lion. That's Startown. It sounds like there's not a lot there. And it's because Startown is just a little outlier of the Hickory area where you have a lot of residences, and they do all their shopping and living and working in Hickory because it's 10 minutes away. So that's what you find is like if Hickory's the center of the cog of the wheel, I'm going over all the different spokes so you can kind of be familiar with it. So yeah, Startown, we've talked about that. Newton and Conover, because we're going to go pretty far south and east of our baseline here. Newton and Conover are so similar that they're actually by locals said in the same city. It's not Newton or Conover. Sometimes we say, oh, Newton Conover, like as if it's hyphenated. And there is a school called Newton Conover, and that's probably why we do that. The thing you see in these areas, starting at the bottom with Startown. Startown is a lot of neighborhoods that popped up in the 2000s of really nice brick homes whenever things, were like really booming in this area, and they were like, hey, we got to put up housing. It seems like a lot of it ended up in Startown. A little bit larger lots, well-built homes, lots of little communities stacked up. A great place to live. Startown's wonderful. I highly recommend that area if you're wanting to have not feel like you're in the city, but you want to be able to get to stuff quickly. Newton and Conover, those are two cities, and they are in fact their own cities. I don't want to be unclear about that. They're not part of Hickory. They are just outside of Hickory, and it's southeast of it. Newton and Conover are very similar in that they are areas that are getting a lot of revitalization. The downtown areas in particular of Newton and the downtown areas of Conover, it has a similar vibe. It's got kind of that courthouse in the middle, small shops around the perimeter. Just really adorable places. And a lot of these homes in these areas, I will tell you this to be cautious because there's a lot of flips going on in those areas. Older homes that you see them pop up on the MLS and they're like cute as a button. They've been flipped, remodeled. Just keep in mind, drive down that street, drive down 2 blocks from that street, because not every house on that street looks like that. This is an area of a lot of opportunity for investment, but also where you've seen people start to fix things up and there's a little inconsistency in road by road is the best way to put it. Same goes for Hickory. Right in downtown Hickory, you have some beautiful, stately, historic homes that would sell for over $1 million. And that's great. But then 2 blocks down, you may have one that it could be worth that, but it's not worth that right now because it's run down. So same for Newton and Conover. There's some beautiful properties out there, a lot of history, and I can tell that the government in those areas have done such a beautiful job at revitalizing those areas and really creating that same vibe that City of Hickory has done such a good job of doing with their downtown. So those are areas that you should definitely explore whenever you say, I want to move to Hickory. Well, I'm probably going to set my search out pretty far for you because you may find something just perfect right over here. And it doesn't say Hickory, but it is. So that's why, like I said, reach out if you're thinking of moving here. We can walk you through all of this. But that's southeast Hickory. And that's, again, it's a very desirable place to live. You go so far south and east, you end up in Lake Norman. So you can kind of get your bearings here. You can see we've got Lake Hickory. If you go far enough south and east, you end up in a whole different lake, which is Lake Norman. And let me tell you, the price points shoot up really high about right here. So this is that sweet spot. If you're somebody that is wanting to spend a lot of time in Charlotte, spend a lot of time in this Mooresville area, you like Lake Norman, but you're like, you know what? I am not paying those prices to live in Mooresville. Denver's great. I mean, you can be on this side, but I'm telling you, a lot of people prefer to live right here in this area. Now, if you go so far south, you end up in Lincolnton. Lincolnton's very slow. I think one of their biggest shopping areas is like the Walmart. So just keep that in mind. It's just a whole different thing. And guys, I cannot possibly communicate everything in one video, but this is why whenever you do consider relocating and you start doing your research on different areas, like that's when we sit down and we do these Zoom calls with folks and say, okay, let's talk about this specific area and let's virtually drive through there together. And let me tell you my experience with that area. And guys, I don't really even want to share my opinions. My opinions are not the facts. You may have different opinions about things, but hopefully like a walkthrough like today, and then like a one-on-one walkthrough with you individually if you're considering a move here, it just helps you give you one more perspective. And that's all this is. All right, so following along sort of counterclockwise on our grid, if you will, let's kind of get our bearings still. We've still got our 127 right here, and we still got our railroad tracks right here. So when we say Northeast Hickory, I think of St. Stephen's. St. Stephen's is not only a name of a high school, but it's like a little community within Hickory. St. Stephen's is the era that got the most attention before Southeast Hickory. So I was telling you about the Target and the Catawba Valley Boulevard and all the growth we had there in the early 2000s. I'm not sure because I think whenever all of this was revitalized, it was before I was here. But I think maybe St. Stephen's was the predecessor to that because it's still a very booming area, but it's a little bit commercially, like it's a lot of little stores, a lot of culture diversity there. You've got the Cool Park, which is actually a really cool little mini water park where you can, I hate to say water park, it's like a little swim club, like a pool. There's some trailer parks out here. There's some more affordable housing out here. Cool Park Road, there's some communities out here that are great. A lot of new construction going up out here. Now, to be true to our Northeast guidelines, I will point out that this is North Center Street. That's 127, right? Well, east of that is 29th Avenue. 29th Avenue takes you deeper into the St. Stephen's area. So if you were going through 127, this is where you would take and you turn at the Publix and you would end up in the St. Stephen's area. Again, a high school up there. You also have Catawba Valley Medical Center up there, which is a smaller hospital than Fry. Fry Hospital is in Northwest Hickory. Catawba Hospital is in Northeast Hickory. So nothing wrong with the St. Stephen's area. If you go far enough north and east, you're still on Lake Hickory. There's actually a Lake Hickory RV resort up there, which is pretty cool. It's hard to get a spot up there. One of the country clubs is up there. So believe it or not, if you go far enough north and east on Lake Hickory up here till you get to 16, this is actually Conover. So, it's all connected, Rock Barns, Conover. So you can see here on the map how it all connects. But just to simplify it, when I think of Northeast Hickory, I'm thinking of the St. Stephen's area or the Cool Park area. You've just got your basic stuff. It is a lot of residential, but it's also a lot of storage unit places, some older food lines and shopping areas. That's about it. The Fairgrove area, that's kind of close to where the hospital is at. Then a lot of these roads, and we could really zoom in and do specific areas. But I'm hopeful that maybe today that this has given you a little bit of an overview. And guys, we do these calls all the time where we'll sit down and say, okay, well, let's just give you a tour of Hickory before you come out here. And let's get an idea of where you want to be and what you want life to look like. And, describe the lifestyle that you want for you and your family. And let's talk through what areas may accommodate that the best. Certainly, we could do a whole video about price points and crime rates and schools. So there's different applications for everything that we've been over today to dig in deeper with it. But this is just a local girl just sharing sort of her perspective on the different areas. Certainly come take a look around and see what impression you get of it. There's really no bad part of town to live in. We love Hickory. Of course, I've grown up here. I'm raising my kids here. But it's a beautiful area. It offers a lot, and it's very diverse in and of itself. So hopefully this video is helpful to you. And if you at any point want to set up a Zoom call to do this individually, we can do that. And comment below if you have certain areas that you want me to just zoom in on and say, you know what, let's look at Startown and let's really look at Startown. Like, let's dig in, because we can zone in on that and we can go over all the details and what it's really like and what roads and all of that. So hopefully this video was helpful to you, and we'll catch you next time. So thank you for joining us today on our tour around Hickory and surrounding areas. If you've gotten value out of this video, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. So like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get alerts whenever we post new content. And please comment below, because we want to hear your ideas for content that you would find helpful as you consider a move to North Carolina. So we can't wait to hear from you soon.